So should you buy Apple? Well, let's check in with Phil, if now's a good time to get in on the stock. Phil.
Yeah, Michelle, you can't help but notice the fact that we had this massive rally in the marketplace and Apple stock just did very little, almost nothing. For more, Bert Dohmen, president and founder of Dohmen Capital Research Institute in Santa Monica, California, joins us. And Eric Bleeker, senior technology analyst at Motley Fool, joins us here in the studio. And gentlemen, to both of you, let's start with you, Bert. Is Apple at this time cheap or expensive?
Well, I wrote a column for Forbes on December 5th last year, and I said I wouldn't buy Apple stock. At that time, it was a lot higher. I wrote another column on January 15th and said it would go to 422 because our first target on the downside was 520, and that was 6 days after the top when it had reached 705. We use technical analysis, which shows you money flow. It showed that money flow was really going out. And this stock is no longer a growth company. It is now a value stock. And that's a big difference. Value stocks are usually much cheaper on a price-earnings basis. And Apple is now in a liquidation phase.
All right. Let me get Eric in on this. Eric, I know you disagree, and I guess the question is, cheap or expensive here?
Mm-hmm. Well, I believe it's cheap. I'm a fundamentals guy, and when I look at Apple, it's at 10 times earnings, ex cash 7. That's in the bottom 5% of the market, and you have to say, is Apple's future in the bottom 5% of companies? I don't believe that's the case.
Apple is one of the widest traded stocks, not just on the NASDAQ, but on all exchanges in the entire world.
Sure.
What's wrong with the company? Why are investors staying away from Apple?
Well, I think that they think what's going to happen in mobile phones is what happened to PCs. They think Google's going to
die.
Yeah, they think Google's going to be the next Microsoft, Samsung's going to be the next Dell, and well, Apple's going to be the next Apple. But I think this is a market that's fundamentally different than that. So I don't think paying 10 times earnings for Apple right now is some.
Bert, what's a reasonable price to pay for Apple that potentially could help make money?
I wouldn't buy it until I had 3 in front of the number. And it's very simple. I mean, everybody in the world, including their dog, owned Apple stock. It took them several years to accumulate that stock. You don't sell all that stock in just a few months' time. The stock is still being liquidated. Every rally will be sold into.
Okay.
You have a lot of people
Bert,
looking for higher prices.
I will give you the money flow argument, but there's a lot. I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here. There are a lot of bulls out there would argue that the stock is cheap. And in terms of global penetration, Apple as a company has not penetrated a lot of parts of the world, and they could still sell millions and millions and millions of iPhones and iPads. Is that something perhaps you could consider that would convert you into a bull?
No, they cannot penetrate the market anymore. When they go internationally, they're in big price competition. The iPhone is much too expensive. If you go to China, they can't even get China Mobile to take up the iPhone because the iPhone is much too expensive, and Apple will never cut prices.
All right, Bert, I will agree with you. The iPhone is expensive, but
it's too expensive for the rest of the world.
But is he right, Eric? Is it too expensive for the rest of the world?
In 2009, everyone would have said they would have had no penetration in China. Now they have 23% market share in urban markets. That's not a storyline that's played out.
That's an old story.
Well, we want to look at growth markets, and hey, at the start of this year, everyone's projecting 200 million tablets by 2016. Now the forecast is up to 400
What about
million.
Samsung? What about the iPad Mini cannibalizing their business for iPads? I mean, aren't these valid, legitimate arguments, Eric?
Well, I mean, you're going to have some level of cannibalization, but I think it was definitely the right move. And Samsung is seeing a very high share in many countries. But that's to say, is Apple at this valuation not able to keep growing, being at a slightly smaller market share than Samsung? I don't think when you look at the valuation, that's the real story.
Bert, let me throw an idea out at you. What if Apple paid a 3 or 4% dividend? Would that change your mind?
Not at all. You're getting your own money back. Why would you pay your money for their money? I mean, you're just exchanging. This is a whole argument about dividends is so ridiculous. Why would you want to? Everybody says 137 billion in cash. So what? So you're buying cash. With your cash, you're buying cash of Apple. What's the difference? They're earning about 1% on their cash. If a company doesn't have enough intelligence to use their cash for more productive purposes, you should get new management.
Okay. I can't change management, but a lot of folks are saying that Apple is the next Microsoft. They're the next Dell. They're the next stock that went from 60 to 15 is going to sit there for 3 years. Is this what's going to happen to Apple?
Yes.
Okay, that was the shortest answer we've had on Biz Asia America. Eric, hey, look, I don't disagree with what Bert is saying. He's got a very valid point. I mean, as an investor, that scares the heck out of you when you think about you throw your money in there and it just slowly dribbles down. When do you step into Apple? Is it right now? Would you be willing to step in right now to buy Apple shares?
Yes, I would be willing to step in. And again, it's Microsoft when they had their decade of not moving. I was from a PE of 60. This is a company with 10. And I look at a market at a PE of 17. I think the risk reward on this company is just extremely attractive right now. And people get scared because it's a sell-off, but I think that's when long-term investors have an opportunity.
Is there one thing that you're worried about with Apple?
Yeah, I mean, it is the threat and competition. They have very high margins. You need to watch this competitive landscape, and I won't own Apple without, saying that I'm going to own it forever because there can be changes to this competitive environment.
Eric Bleeker, Motley Fool, Bert Dohmen, founder of Dohmen Capital Research, Santa Monica, California. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. You have both very different views on this.
Thank you very much, Phil. It was a pleasure.